Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. My name is Steve Smith, and I'm your host, and this is a brand new episode of Dint Golf Solutions and Colin Campbell Chemicals Walking the Fairways. This is episode number 126. Ladies and gentlemen, it's so good to have Dint Golf Solutions as partners to Walking the Fairways segment of the podcast, and I've got Adam Dinty joining me. G'day, Adam, once again. How are you?
I'm good, Steve. How are you?
Very well, thank you, mate. And, mate, we're going to be talking about a couple of things today. But first of all, I've got to start off with the footy tipping. The footy tipping,
great
mate.
time.
How's the footy tipping going with the NRL and the AFL? Who's leading?
Well, good timing after New South Wales winning last night.
Absolutely.
So this is a great time to ask. So in our NRL tipping, we've got Corowa, who's in the lead.
Oh.
And they're followed by Carpentaria in Queensland and Twin Creeks.
Oh, okay. Very good. We've got a good mix in there. And I've got to shout out to the Carpentaria team up in Weipa in far north Queensland, I think is where it is. That's a long way away from home. So good to see they're involved.
Absolutely. And AFL, we've got Royal Hobart. They're still at the top.
Led by Tommy North, the superintendent down there. Yep, very good.
And Corowa again, they're coming second in the AFL, so they're having a stellar year.
On the New South Wales Vic border, mate. They're splitting it on both ladders. How good's that?
Absolutely. And Bunbury and WA are coming third.
Oh, great stuff. Good to see. So good mix of different clubs right around Australia getting involved in the Dint footy tipping competitions, mate, which is fantastic and good to share that around. Now, mate, we want to talk about, you want to share with us a bit of the tines that you guys sell for the Australian market. Tell us a bit about some of those things going on.
Yeah, they've been unreal, Steve. We got these out of, from KBV Efforts out of Hamburg in Germany, and we've done them for close to 10 years now, and they do a whole range of tines, but the tines that are most popular are their solid tines that they do, and they're 160 mil long, but the unique thing about them is that the man who makes them in Hamburg, Germany, he has a patent on tapering tines. So what that means is that when you're ejecting the tine out of the green, it's a taper, so it causes less disruption.
Oh, wow. And that's very impressive.
Mate, and the guys who use them swear by them, but it just stops that tufting on the green when you're doing your solid tines. And because they're made from a hardened steel, and you can tell the quality of them just by looking at them, but the 5 mil ones and the 6 mil ones are really strong, so they don't snap, which some 5 mil and 6 mil tines have done before. So we do them all through the year, guys doing them, throughout the year, winter, summer, all over. So that's something that's really great that they make. And they've also, about 2 years ago, I went over there and they had showed me they have a long life tiny tine, they call it, which is a little 5 mil hollow tine.
Wow.
And they've been out for about a year now, Steve, and the guys who are using them are getting outstanding results. They're finding that they can get around more than one set of greens, like close to 36 greens, depending on the size of their greens, but using that tine, and the tiny tine just has no wear. So
that's awesome.
They've been outstanding.
Great tools to have in the toolbox when you're maintaining a golf course, especially with the current weather patterns we're having, keeping the surface open, keeping it breathing, and keeping the oxygen moving in and out of that profile, and keeping the water moving through very well. Mate, that's fantastic to hear and great to have available through Dint.
Fantastic, mate, and I look forward to seeing you at the ASTMA show in a few weeks.
Absolutely, mate. Looking forward to being there. Walking the Fairways is also brought to you by Colin Campbell Chemicals, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. Colin Campbell Chemicals is 100% Australian owned. That's been going for 85 years strong. Now, you know the story. They offer a wide range of plant protection products to help keep your turf safe. And following on from that, of course, Nadeem will be part of the Colin Campbell Chemicals stand at the ASTMA trade show in Sydney this year, the national conference, that's the Australian Sports Turf Managers Association conference in Sydney on June 24 to 26, where they will be showcasing their latest products, one of which is the brand new Chino, which is a Pythium fungicide, as well as an update to POA mapping and using the John Deere GPS sprayers with POA Cure. So a combination and lots of info going on there that you'll be able to pick Nadeem's brains about at the trade show stand. Now, it's free to attend the trade show on Wednesday the 25th and Thursday the 26th of June. And Nadeem's given me the link to the registration page, which will be in the show notes. There's always lots of things in the show notes, ladies and gentlemen, so go through them and you can go and find that information and just simply click on it and it will take you straight to where you need to go. I've done all the homework for you. Now, here's a great one for all New South Wales sports turf apprentices. So that's any registered sports turf apprentice or greenkeeping apprentice currently working in New South Wales. The Sports Turf Association of New South Wales, that's a New South Wales STA, have been working with the ASTMA and are putting on a Sports Turf Management Apprentice Day at the conference in Sydney this year, and it's on Wednesday the 25th of June. So, if you're a sports turf apprentice in New South Wales, this is a free event just for you. There's a link in the show notes so you can go there and register yourself for the day. And to give you a bit of an idea, and it's a fantastic day. Nadim's told me to make sure I can give you some details about this one. It starts off in the morning on Wednesday. There's machinery demonstrations. Then you'll go on to the trade show tour. There's a morning tea. Then it goes on to a discussion about career paths in the industry. There's a conference session where you get to choose for the golf or sports field streams. You can go and listen to some of the talks there. There's lunch. Then there's a venue tours. So this is for apprentices, right? You're going to go in and get a tour of Accor Stadium. That's Stadium Australia in Sydney, where the Olympics was held, and all the biggest sporting events that happen here in Sydney are held. The NRL Centre of Excellence and NG Stadium as well. So there's great tours. After that's a conclusion, and then you can get to the trade show again if you want to as well. So it's a great day that's been planned out here with the New South Wales STA, and Nadim's a big supporter of that as well, as much as he does for any part of sports turf and greenkeeping in the industry. Nadim is big on education and helping you get better at what you do, which is one of the wonderful things about having a partnership with Nadim and Colin Campbell Chemicals. Don't forget to check out their website at campbellchemicals.com.au. There's lots of details of their plant protection product range. And of course, for more education, there is Behind the Turf podcast that Nadim has, and he puts out there for everyone in the sports turf and greenkeeping industry. We start off in New South Wales, ladies and gentlemen, and what can I say? Incredible times once again along the New South Wales coastline. This time it was the Mid North Coast, which is essentially from Newcastle all the way to just about Coffs Harbour. There's been astounding totals of rainfall that contributed obviously to all of these floods that were in so many parts of New South Wales. Taree seemed to be the epicentre of it all, and there were so many other areas, Nambucca, Wingham, Warhope, Maxville. There's so many other centres, regional centres along the coastline, and obviously even just north of Newcastle as well, in and around Medowie, there was lots of flooding. It was just an astonishing time, and west up the Hunter River as well, which was another main part. So Raymond Terrace was completely flooded, just the same areas of Maitland. It was just astonishing. And what I've done, I've tried to put some things together for you just to give you a sense of scale. Lots of people have seen images on the news and all sorts of stuff when it was unfolding. And it happened just after our last episode of Walking the Fairways. But what I wanted to give to you was some of the detail in what went on with the rainfall totals. I like to dive into these things to get an understanding of just how much rain happens. We that work on golf courses and golfers that are interested in what happens on golf courses just the same, you often have an understanding of how much rain equals what on the golf course. Well, this is going to give you an idea of what equals big floods, and we hear it from time to time, but I was curious to see there was about 5 days of rain, but there seemed to be really 2 to 3 days of intense rainfall. Well, it was actually 3 days of intense rainfall where most of the rainfall happened, and that was from the 21st to the 23rd of May, where it just went out of control. So there's 3 days. I've gone through the Bureau of Meteorology numbers, official rainfall data readings, and got the 3 days from the 21st to the 23rd of May to total them up and give you an idea of just how much rainfall fell in that 72-hour period. And we start off with Mount Seaview. Now, Mount Seaview is located between Warhope and Walker in the high country to the west of Port Macquarie. They received 614.2 millimetres in 72 hours, and of that, just over half was received in 24 hours. They had 316.2 millimetres in a 24-hour period at Mount Seaview. So all of that up in the high country is what flows down into the Hastings there at Port Macquarie. This is why there's so much flooding, because there's just the Great Dividing Range to the west, not far to the west of the Mid North Coast. It's not a far drive away from the coast. You're talking sort of 50 kilometres before it starts to rise straight up. So it's pretty it's pretty close, and in some parts it's a lot closer. So it's pretty intense how quickly the water will come off that Great Dividing Range and off that mountain range, smashing down the coastline. Luckily, it's a short distance, but it's pretty incredible. The second highest for the 3 days was at Comboyne, and that's, again, west of Port Macquarie in the Hastings River catchment. They received 600 millimetres in 72 hours. 227 mil was in a 24-hour period there as well. These are just mind-boggling numbers. We know that lots of people in Victoria, certainly Western Victoria, South Australia, and the southern parts of Western Australia as well, and obviously down into Tasmania too, we can't forget. Lots of those places have been drought declared, and they're in a prolonged period of dry, which is causing a lot of angst to a lot of people that live and work on the land for their livelihoods, i.e. farmers. But for golf courses, it is also very, very challenging, and golf clubs there indeed. So these numbers to come from this are just mind-boggling. Some of the places down in the southern parts of Australia don't receive these totals for the year, and here we are having them in 72 hours here on the East Coast. That's the difference in the landscape across Australia. The third highest was Wingham, which is a township just to the west of Taree, and it's upstream along the Manning River. They received 592.6 millimetres in 72 hours. 278.8 mil was in 24-hour period there. Morrill Creek, to the north of Taree, which flows into the Manning River, they had 572 mil in 3 days, and 235 of which was in a 24-hour period. Moppy Lookout, which is on the eastern side of the Barrington Tops, and it's part of the Manning River catchment to the west of Taree as well. So you see here that these areas around the Manning River catchment and the Hastings River catchment receive the most amount of rainfall, and that's why Taree and the Manning were the biggest flooded areas in this particular flood situation. Moppy Lookout received 564 mil, and 243 of that was in 24 hours. Crystal Creek, which is north of Bellingen up towards Coffs Harbour, they had 548 millimetres, and they received the most in a 24-hour period, and that was 337 millimetres in 24 hours. Absolutely staggering. Carey's Peak on the Barrington Tops, again in the high country to the west and upstream of Taree, they received 534 millimetres, and 271 was in a 24-hour period. Now, Carey's Peak is actually 1,544 metres above sea level there in the Barrington Tops, which is more than 500 metres higher than the township of Katoomba, which is where the golf course was that I was superintendent in the Blue Mountains. So just give you an idea of how far things will come down from that elevation, and why those sorts of particular natural environments create their own weather. The Barrington Tops is known for creating its own weather. It's a beautiful part of this country. I've been up there camping, and it's just magnificent, but I didn't realise it was so high. It does get snow up there in the depths of winter. It's just such a magical part of this country, but it's very, very high up there, and they get lots and lots of rainfall. And that's on the eastern side of the Barrington Tops, it flows into the Manning, and pretty much on the southern and western sides, it sort of wraps around and flows into the Hunter, which is further to the south in Newcastle. Barrington Tops itself has a rain gauge that they call Barrington Tops, which is very close to the actual very beginning of the Manning River, right at the top of the Barrington Tops National Park there, which is, of course, west of Taree. And they received 523 millimetres, 268 was in a 24-hour period. The ninth highest total for 3 days was Taree itself, which is located between Newcastle and Port Macquarie, and it's just slightly inland from the mouth of the Manning River, but is on the river. The river runs, you cross the river as you drive into town, and they received 502.4 mil in 72 hours, 279 of which was in a 24-hour period. And finally, the 10th highest total that I calculated for the 3 days of the peak of the rainfall that caused a lot of this flooding was at Port Macquarie, which is north of Taree. It's between Newcastle and Coffs Harbour, at the mouth of the Hastings River, and they had 389 mil in 72 hours, which is a lot less, but 238 was in a 24-hour period there. But most of all of this stuff, as you've seen there, has fallen on the ranges and just to the eastern parts of the ranges, which is what causes all of these floodings. Now, courses that saw some of the worst flooding were Nambucca Heads Island Golf Club, which I've talked about in the past, and that's on the Stewart Island in the middle of the Nambucca River, just near the mouth of the Nambucca River itself. And they're no stranger to being flooded, but they went under, and a lot of silt deposits on the golf course there in the midst of a big cleanup. Maxfield Country Club not far from Nambucca, Kew Country Club, Taree Golf Club were also heavily flooded. Now, Pacific Dunes Golf Club, which is down at Medowie near Newcastle, right near Newcastle Airport itself, and they got extensively flooded as well. And to a lesser extent, due to another factor, such as super high water tables, and combined with the high tides, was flooding on the sand golf courses and the beachside courses at Newcastle Golf Club and Tuncurry Golf Club. So they've had water standing on golf course, and they have free draining courses on absolute sand. But when you get this much rain and the water table rises as far as it does, it actually comes above some of the turf surfaces there on both of those particular courses. And the big high tides that have been happening around this time, the water's just been sitting there for over a week in some parts and longer. And they've got their own challenges there with a different type of flooding. So lots happening across a significant part of the New South Wales coastline, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of devastation, and lots of people dealing with a very, very difficult time. Now, in relation to Pacific Dunes, and that's one of the courses that I want to highlight a little bit at the moment, and certainly the newer courses, even Cooinda Waters on the Central Coast, that they had lots of flooding, and sometimes they get flooding in normal heavy rainfall. You might not know this, and I just wanted to sort of point this out to you, is that the reason courses like Pacific Dunes and Cooinda Waters would flood a little bit more regularly than others, it's because when a new golf course is built that is part of a larger residential development, in particular these two cases are, the golf course is usually the drainage area for all of the houses and the roads. So they utilise the open space of the golf course to deal with the stormwater. That's how the stormwater is managed on these particular sites. Now, sites with these types of developments are seldom built right on the beach/coastline, like a Magenta Shores, for example, say north of Sydney, or the Cut in Perth. They're constructed in areas more like a local drainage or low-lying areas where land can't be used for building houses, or they're the drainage areas like Pacific Dunes and Cooinda Waters, like I mentioned, which is essentially, Cooinda Waters is essentially part of a swampy area, which is adjacent to the Wyong River. In fact, further up from Cooinda, the swamp goes to the low parts of the Wyong Golf Club as well, which borders the swamp. If you look at it on Google Earth, it's clear as day where that whole swampy area is. It's like a really big drainage area. So it's easier to get the land utilised for golf. The trade-off is that when there's lots of rainfall, these areas will flood. Twin Creeks in southwestern Sydney is nearby South Creek, with Cosgrove Creek running through it. That also gets flooded when there's lots of rainfall. Stonecutters Ridge along Eastern Creek in the western part of Sydney is another one. When Eastern Creek gets up with lots of rainfall, parts of Stonecutters Ridge will go underwater. And these courses are all part of housing developments. Just about all of the golf courses on the Gold Coast, for example, are built like this, which is why so many of them flood when the Gold Coast gets significant heavy rainfall, and you've heard me talk about that over the last couple of years. Here's another one for you, Linwood Country Club, which is a relatively new course. I say that's about 20 years old. That gets flooded along the Hawkesbury River, and I always thought it was an unreal place to build a golf course, actually, with Linwood, and I'm a fan of Linwood. When it opened there a few years ago, it opened during the drought period, and I was like, what a great spot for a golf course. And now with years of flood, we can see why it could never be built for housing and why it's used for a golf course, because it's an area that gets submerged in significant floods. Riverside Oaks to the northwest of Sydney is the same, which you all know about, I'm sure, I've mentioned from time to time. The second Bungool course, which is the new one designed by Bob Harrison, I say new loosely, of course, because it's now the best part of probably 12 years old, I'm guessing, maybe even longer. It hasn't been rebuilt by the owners of the club because it keeps getting flooded by the Hawkesbury River. In fact, Ted Sterling, who I've had on the design brief before, Ted Sterling designed the original golf course at Riverside. That's the Ganguru course, which they built from the old Hawkesbury Valley Golf Club back in the 60s when it was the Hawkesbury Valley Golf Club, and then it went on to become Paradise Gardens. Well, Ted told me that when he designed the original Ganguru course, as they call it now, they also had planned for a second golf course out the back, which is where the Bungool course is today, and they always knew that area went underwater. So they were never, when they were going to build it, if it ever come to that they were involved in the build, they were never going to put bunkers on that golf course, according to Ted, because it regularly went underwater in the 70s and 80s. So in the early 80s, it was something that they knew about and that they were very aware of. You can see something similar where no bunkers have been used, where Pacific Coast Design, with golf course architects Phil Ryan and Paul Reeves, what they did with the new Minipie course for the Brisbane City Council in Brisbane, and that's in lieu of the Victoria Park golf course that they closed down. They built that golf course with no bunkers. So they've got some unique different types of hazards around there with little short sleeper walls, if you like, around in some areas to provide a little bit of challenge. But there's no bunkers on that golf course because that's in an area that floods quite regularly. And these are the places that we're building golf courses that doesn't take up any more usable land in cities and suburbs of cities. It's where they can build a golf course and get use of that green space close by where the houses are and where the dense population is, that they know will, unfortunately, at times, is part of the drainage area of that particular region. So, unfortunately, from time to time, golf courses go underwater. They're built to go underwater because they know it's going to happen. They're not built there by accident with people not having any idea. There's lots of planning and all sorts of things that go into understanding the way the flooding works in those areas where the golf course is built, so they know that they're going to go underwater in flood. And they will do for a period of time. It's not anything new, ladies and gentlemen. As devastating as it is, it's a known risk by those involved. And to a lesser extent, with courses like Maxville, Taree and Nambucca Heads Island, golf courses in country areas along New South Wales coast, it's again on land that isn't useful in those particular areas either. But the landscape of the northern New South Wales coastline and adjacent ranges has been like this for eons. That's one thing we forget, and we're quick to forget. It's devastating, but not new. The road between Bellingen, for example, just to the south of Coffs Harbour, and Bellingen gets flooded regularly when there's lots of rainfall. The road between Bellingen to Armidale, which goes to the west of Bellingen up the Great Dividing Range, is called Waterfall Way, and it's called that for this very reason. If you look at the landscape of the Blue Mountains to the west of Sydney, it's got some of the most incredible gorges for hundreds of kilometres because it can rain a lot at times. Same thing up north. One of the national parks up north in New South Wales is called Oxley Wild Rivers National Park. Take a stab in the dark as to why it's got that name. And it's a wild country out there, and we are in the midst of a pretty wild 5 years so far on the coast of New South Wales since the rains have started once again. And this is how our landscape is formed. We've only been here for a microsecond of time compared to the age of our country and how the land has been formed. It's just going through some more changes at this very particular moment in time. Now, I mentioned that road up from Bellingen to Armidale, Waterfall Way. That's the road to Dorrigo, which I drove up only a couple of months ago, heading up to play Dorrigo Golf Club, which incidentally is my favourite 9-hole golf course in Australia, and I'll say that out loud. Well, that road at one point was still being repaired from a landslide from the floods in 2022, and these rains have brought more landslides along Waterfall Way, and the road has been damaged once again, and I believe at the moment it's a single lane passing area along that road in sections where there's been the landslides yet again. The valleys and the gorges are still changing, and they will change forever. I certainly wish everyone dealing with these floods in any way, shape or form all the best in the recovery, because it's always a long road. I've not been through flood recovery myself, so I don't quite understand it, but I know that it is a very, very challenging time for lots of people, and I wish everyone very well in the Mid North Coast of New South Wales. Now we jump to a golf course in Sydney that's had some work being done recently at Massey Park Golf Club, which is not far from Concord Golf Club in Sydney's inner west, and they've been getting some bunker upgrades on their 9th and 10th holes recently. It's the full Monty here with the work for the golf club, all new drainage, including bunker liners, and of course new sand is going in. They're doing it properly. Good upgrades to the public golf course, which is, as I mentioned, right near the Concord Golf Club there in Sydney's inner west. So it's along Canada Bay. That's a great place to go to play golf. I've not seen it myself, but I hear lots of people going there and playing golf and enjoying Massey Park, and they're going through some great upgrades to their bunkers on course, which is great to hear. Now, another weird one that happened as well, and I'm going to throw it in there as a last point for New South Wales, was just last week we had a dust storm come through in the early parts of last week in the morning. And I had a few messages from some people here in Western Sydney that were saying to me, Steve, we've got a dust storm. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Where could it have possibly come from? And I was thinking Western New South Wales, knowing that even parts of Western New South Wales have had a bit of rain, which is often where some of the dust storms come from, the southwest parts and things like that. And I know that it's been not that dry, not overly drought dry. So I wasn't sure, so I did a bit of digging. And as it turns out, it had come all the way from Western Victoria and South Australia, all the way across to the east coast of New South Wales. It's crazy to think it's not long after the floods, only a matter of days really, and here is a dust storm approaching. And like I said, I couldn't believe it myself, but it was a massive cold front that swept up through South Australia into the southern parts of the state and picked up a lot of the topsoil that's just in the middle of drought, the dry, dusty topsoil from South Australia, southern parts of South Australia and in Western Victoria, and it transplanted it all the way over here. It had to travel about 1,000 kilometres to get here, and it deposited a film of dust across all of the east coast here, and certainly in particular Sydney. Now, dust storms are not good for golfers, golf courses and greenkeeping. They do not combine well. I remember we had a really bad one. I think it might have been 2008, maybe, something like that, in when I was working at Katoomba, and it came across one morning, and I remember it quite clearly, even though you couldn't see quite clearly. It was almost like it's like you're in a bushfire. It was red, the sunrise, it was dark, it come out of nowhere, and I don't remember hearing about it at the time. It just came through. I don't remember hearing the news that it was coming. And it deposited quite a thick layer of dust with us up in the Blue Mountains because we're a kilometre up in the sky, so it deposited a lot of dust down, and we were out cutting tees and surrounds that particular morning, and I remember one of the guys had got me over the radio and said, Steve, we've got a problem here because the mower's not working. We were cutting tees and surrounds, we had the greens mower going as well, and literally we'd never dealt with it before, didn't think much of it, but as soon as it started depositing the dust on the turf surfaces, and immediately the guys continued mowing. We knew that we worked out quickly it wasn't smoke and it was a dust storm. We didn't think much of it. And you put the mower cutting units down, you cut a foot, and all of a sudden all the blades on all the mowers were destroyed. It's because you're cutting dirt. It's essentially what's going on. So it took the sharp edge away from all the mowers within a foot to a metre, and they were completely destroyed. So we had to come in off the course and rip all the cutting units off the mowers and start to sharpen everything up. So that was our day done. So a dust storm is not good for turf surfaces and greenkeeping, ladies and gentlemen, just so that you know, for those who are interested, when it's a heavy one. I'm not sure whether this one affected the cutting units on mowers around Australia, but certainly affected the ones when we had a big one in the Blue Mountains, and I thought I'd share that little story with you. Now we move to South Australia, where Glenelg Golf Club, as you know, I'm a big fan of in Adelaide. They're continuing to move through their works, which I've been keeping you updated. Well, just on this weekend gone, Glenelg were able to officially open the 8th and 9th holes, which had recently been completed, their works, the redesign works. Epic stuff, and congratulations to Superintendent Tim Warren and his team on course for growing in all the new work and preparing it for play. Along with a congratulations to Neil Crafter from Crafter Mogford and Ryan Vanderveen, who's working in conjunction there. Both those gentlemen are working in conjunction with Bob Toohey from the Golf Club for the design of the new works there on course at Glenelg, and they continue to move through their work, looking towards getting to the end of it all by the end of this year. Fingers crossed. Now we go to Willunga Golf Club, and that's to the south of Adelaide City. They're doing some irrigation upgrades on course to their irrigation system. New main lines are being installed, and the control system is being upgraded here, which is a great big step in improving efficiency of irrigation water for use around the golf course at Willunga. And these sorts of irrigation upgrades aren't cheap to do, but they are extremely important, and they certainly improve the way a golf course can be looked after a great deal, and that's fantastic to see down at Willunga Golf Club in South Australia. Now, ladies and gentlemen, on Walking the Fairways, we are getting some updated information, and I'm going down to the Apple Isle over the phone here, and we're going into the wonderful Tasmania Golf Club, and I have on the line Superintendent Ben Stacey from Tasmania Golf Club. G'day, Ben. How are you, mate?
I'm good, Steve.
Mate, thanks for jumping on and joining me on here. This is a nice addition to be able to talk about you guys and neighbours of 7 Mile Beach. You're not far away. You're also near Royal Hobart and a couple of the other courses around that neck of the woods. You're a famous name in Hobart. Great to have you on, and let's talk about a little bit of what's going on, mate. You're superintendent. How long have you been there as super at Tasmania?
Just coming up on 2 years now. So I started here in early July 2023.
Fantastic, mate. And you've been sending me a couple of photos and showing me some of the work that you guys have been up to. And we were just chatting before we turned this on and pressed record, was that this work that you've been doing on course, you're going to update us, is part of the master plan done by Ben Davey and Contour Golf. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And, mate, tell us a little bit of what's been going on, what you've been up to. You've been rebuilding one of the holes and you've got a new hole there as a spare hole. Tell us a little bit of the detail on what you've been doing.
Yeah, sure. So not long after I started, we had Ben down to do a bit of a meet and greet with some of the members, and we had a bit of a meeting just to get everyone on board, I suppose. So I got a chance to meet Ben, and we did a bit of a course walk, and I had a few months on course to sort of look at things and decided that our 17th hole, for how much it was lacking, it probably had the most potential. It's right on the water and has beautiful views of Barilla Bay and mountains in the distance. And yeah, there's just been a lot of overgrown vegetation and stuff like that. And all of the bunkers were really, really badly windblown. The surrounds were infested with kikuyu, and yeah, just needed a bit of a facelift. And to get some of the members on board, we decided that would be a good one to start with and sort of show them what we were trying to do. So not long after I'd started, we got into that. So basically from the green edge outwards, we started again and redid the irrigation, rebuilt all the bunkers as per Ben Davey's master plan, rebuilt the tee and rebuilt the 18th tee as well, which is just adjacent to the green and flows nicely. It's all continuous sort of turf, which is a bit of a sandbelt sort of look that we're going with as well.
And a little bit in that, mate, you mentioned to me you've been doing this work in-house. Is that right? Yeah,
all completely in-house. So we did have a little bit of help with some of the bulk earthworks with the guy I did a little bit of work with that actually worked at 7 Mile for about a year.
Yep.
Dean. So got a hold of Dean, just we needed a bit of help with some of the bulk earthworks. And it's a very... if you see where it is on a map, it's a very precarious sort of location, right?
It looks unbelievable.
Sort of the water.
It looks unreal.
Yeah, so it's pretty tricky and needed some steady hands on a large excavator to do some of the bulk works, which was nice to have him in.
Now, before we get into a little bit of a detail, because I want to hear about your grasses and things you're doing there as well, so we can let everyone know. Mate, just to give people an idea, because there's people that are listening to here that know Tasmania Golf Club, that have probably played there in the past or might remember it from years gone by. One of the things that I noticed, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you've rerouted the course. You've kind of swapped the nines around, so you're now playing the front nine was the previous back nine, and the 17th hole that we're talking about wasn't this hole previously, as people might remember it.
Correct, yeah. So that's now the 8th hole. So the original front nine is now the back nine, and nothing's really changed as far as the routing. However, the old back nine, the new front nine, has been completely rerouted. So I guess the old 18th, which is now the 9, is a par 3, which depends what you like, but finishing on a par 3 I don't think is very good. And they had some issues with the old first hole being a drivable par 4. It really slowed things up early in the morning.
And there was two in a row, really. The first two were kind of short-ish, weren't they, really?
Yeah, it was a little dysfunctional, and yeah, you don't want to be off to a slow start right at the start of your round. So.
I mean, you do have still the famous par 5, which was the 3rd, is now the 12th. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. And yeah, it all flows a lot nicer, I believe. And the 18th hole currently, the old 9th, is a great finishing hole, really tough, long par 4 that comes back up towards the clubhouse. It's quite fitting. So yeah,
the par 3 that you're working on, 17, is now the penultimate hole, and it's a really special looking golf. Like you said, very precarious on the edge, off to the right, just just falls away into the water, essentially. Don't block it right if you're a right-hander, because it ain't coming back. And really nice. So tell us, it looks really, really impressive on location. I haven't been there specifically, but having a look at, I'll have to come back down actually now because I want to come and see what's going on there when I get back into Hobart. But it's right on the edge of the land, if as you mentioned, near Barilla Bay, which overlooks, because behind that hole is the famous par 5, if I'm not mistaken. So tell us a bit about your turf surfaces. What grasses are you putting in? You mentioned there's a bit of kikuyu management in this. So what's going down on that short fairway of the par 3 and then the tees and so on?
Yeah, so we've got pure fescue now down on those surfaces, which is nice. Just a nice variety of chewings, red and some fine and slender.
Beautiful.
So, it looks really good, and it was what we had originally here when this would have first been built back in the 70s. It was pure fescue fairways, surrounds and tees, and Pencross on the greens. But as it happens, over the years, there's been some other grasses creep their way in, and kikuyu's one of those. So we've got our hands full here over the next couple of years to get rid of that. But yeah, we 17 with that pure fescue mix, and it's come through really nicely.
Fantastic. And that's a touch of what we see going down on some of the other more famous courses, the new shiny new toys, as I call them, the 7 Mile Beaches of the world and the Cape Wickhams and so on, is the fine fescues and the barn bugles and things. So that's what originally was part of the golf course, and just coming back and bringing that, I suppose, that level of quality back to Tasmania Golf Club, which is gone to the days of yesteryear, I gather. You're trying to bring that quality back up.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's still parts of the course and some large parts of the fairways that still have that pure fescue through them, and they're really mature now and look quite good, and they're really hardy through the warmer months, being well established. So we know it grows well here, which is the key. So just trying to get that back and manage the invasive grasses coming through.
Fantastic. You don't need those northern grasses, mate, from up here on the mainland. You don't want them being a pest out there on course. Now, mate, you mentioned to me that you've built a spare hole on site. How's that all gone for you?
Yeah, really well. So with all the works we've got coming up, so the club's looking at installing a new irrigation system in the next couple of years, and along with that work will be little tweaks to all of our holes, so new bunkering and filling in old bunkers and a lot of disruption to golf, I suppose. So, so members could have that full 18-hole experience. I saw the opportunity to build a little 19th hole in between our 15th and 16th holes. It was originally used as a bit of a dumping site, so trees and mulch and turf and whatnot was just sort of dumped in there, and it was
We've all got them. Every golf course has them, don't they? It ends up being this sort of blight. You're like, keep it hidden over there, tucked away. We don't want anyone to see it, but we use it all the time.
Yeah. Underneath all that, though, there's some beautiful untouched native heathland. Lots of nice native grasses, and underneath that is some beautiful native soil. And I just saw the opportunity, and there was some nice shape through the land as well. We cleaned all that out and got to work, and luckily we didn't have to fight the land too much. The shape was, for the most part, already there, and just exposed some of that native sand and moved it around. We didn't have to bring in too much fill, luckily, and it's about 100 metres down the hill, and right behind it, sort of similar to the 17th, it just drops right off and you're heading towards ocean views at Barilla Bay. So it's a pretty special little hole, actually, for a 19th, and it should flow pretty well with the other holes around it if it's in play. So same again, we did all that in-house, the irrigation, the shaping, the seeding, and everything like that, and same turf surfaces as the rest of the course will be.
That is absolutely fantastic to hear, Ben, and really exciting for the club moving forward. It sounds like you guys are onwards and upwards. Really good to see this investment into the golf course and these positive moves to improve the golf course. And a great time, I suppose, if I step back, being a rank outsider up here on the mainland, to look at the vision of what Hobart is becoming. And a key part of that is obviously what's happening at 7 Mile Beach from a publicity perspective and a visitation beautification point of view. So it's good to see the area of Hobart sort of improving itself and rejuvenating itself, and the club's moving forward in a whole. And great to hear about Tasmania, mate. I really do appreciate you jumping on and giving us an inside update of just what's happening to improve Tasmania Golf Club, mate, and gets us all excited from the outside looking in to organise another visit coming soon. I actually know a few people that are coming down there to play golf down into Hobart later on in June. So, mate, it's very exciting times ahead, and I thank you for jumping on and giving us the detail, Ben. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for the chat. And yeah, it is exciting times ahead for the club and the golf courses down here as a whole. I know Tasmania especially, there's so much potential here. And yeah, we're just excited to uncover it and showcase it over the next few years. So we're looking forward to seeing you down here.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. Looking forward to keeping everyone updated through this segment of Walking the Fairways, and great to have you on, Ben. I really appreciate it, and exciting for Tasmania.
No worries. Thanks, Steve.
Now we move, ladies and gentlemen, to Victoria. And I recently, you probably saw, did a trip to Victoria for Keeper of the Greens and did a couple of interviews down there. But my trip also included seeing Latrobe Golf Club, and Superintendent Nathan Turner down there took me for a drive around on the golf course. And I got to see the irrigation upgrades that they're going through, which I've talked about on Walking the Fairways before. Now that I've seen them in person, they are very, very impressive indeed. And Latrobe are doing a great lot of work there, and the pumps and the control systems and everything that's going in, Nathan was showing me, is just quite impressive indeed. So once all that irrigation work is completed, and they're hoping to get through it pretty quickly through this winter, Nathan was telling me they've had the irrigation system off when they were hoping to have things cool down, but the warmer temperatures were just hanging on, and the drier weather was just hanging on enough that it was causing a few headaches for Nathan there and the team. They had to get some water carts out there and doing some hand watering on some of the greens, which they weren't expecting to do. It's just been a little bit drier than usual, or a lot drier than usual down there in Melbourne, which we're hearing about. So challenging times still there at Latrobe in Melbourne with some of this drier weather, but they have had a little bit of rainfall, which has made things a little bit easier for them. And now they get the run on through winter to complete this irrigation upgrade at Latrobe, which is fantastic. Now, I did get to see Commonwealth Golf Club down there in Melbourne, as you know, ladies and gentlemen, the recently completed redesign by Renaissance Golf and Tom Doak, and my head is just blown. I absolutely love what's happening at Commonwealth, and I can speak now from having seen it from experience and walking around with Superintendent Adam Lamb. I had a great morning. It was a frosty morning, nice and bitterly cold and chilling you to the bone. I was at home feeling down there in the frost, walking around the course with Adam, and I just fell in love with the place. I really, really did. The architecture is exceptional. I was very, very impressed with the golf course, and chatting with Adam about how they're going and how they're improving and the way that they're maturing the golf course and those pure distinction turf surfaces. Everything about Commonwealth blew me away in everywhere that they've been doing work on course, and I just had to make a mention. Very impressive indeed. So congratulations to everyone involved, and Commonwealth should be on your list to play if you get given the chance, ladies and gentlemen. And one final part that I went to while I was in Melbourne to see, I went to Metropolitan Golf Club, and Superintendent John Mann was able to give me a drive around and show me just in person the works that have been going on there with Craft and Mogford. They've completed all their golf course upgrades as part of the master plan of works there that I've been reporting on here on Walking the Fairways. And I've got to tell you, again, much like Commonwealth, I was very, very impressed with Metro. I probably wasn't expecting to be that impressed because it was very good. Very, very good, as we all know already. But some of the work in the design, some of the detail in the green contours, the bunker positions, where they've moved some of the bunkers, and the fairway contours, and I can't remember some of the holes off the top of my head, but I'll go back through my photos and I'll make some more notes, and I might mention it to you on the next Walking the Fairways. Metro is very, very impressive. And 16, a great deal of work has been done on 16 with vegetation management, and it has completely changed that golf hole for the better. And 17, where they've got the taxodium trees along the right-hand side of the fairway near the dam wall that you could see, the new contouring that's all part of that. They've kept the trees, which was always a bit of a quirky thing. Some people don't like it, some people do. But now the fairway contouring that's been shaped around those trees and the dam wall, which really stood out like nothing else. It's so subtle. everything's been massaged and altered enough that it looks so much more natural. It flows so much better. The hole feels so much more in tune with the rest of the golf course, certainly as you're coming into the close. And the green's been changed around a great deal. It's been shifted away. The bunkers on the right-hand side near the dam have been adjusted and blown out and made bigger. And oh, wow, Metro, just wow. When I'm looking forward to when Metro holds a tournament, because it was just impressive, very impressive. And we hear about so many of the golf courses along the Sandbelt in Melbourne that in some way, shape or form over the last 5 or 6 or 7 years have gone through a great deal of work, starting with, Peninsula Kingswood to the south, and now it's moved through literally everyone has had some sort of upgrade and rejuvenation and rebirthing, if you like, of their golf course. What a time. What a time to be part of or a regular player down in the Melbourne Sandbelt. And yeah, just having seen those two courses this trip to see how those upgrades have gone, extremely impressive. And both of those clubs, both of those superintendents, both those clubs in Commonwealth and Metro, both the superintendents in Adam Lamb and John Mann respectively, the golf course teams of those two clubs, everyone involved, hats off. You've done a fantastic job in every part. And again, there's a difference in making each course unique here. And that's what I liked about the work, particularly at Metro with Craft and Mogford in their designs, and with John Mann and the way they've maintained and kept the turf surfaces. They're beautifully distinguished turf surfaces there at Metropolitan. It's just phenomenal. And there's so many good things to like about the way that they've preserved the design characteristics, the feel of the golf course. It's a lot more coherent, I think. Even though there was nothing wrong with it, it's still got its little quirks like the mounds and the humps at the beginning of the 9th fairway. They've enhanced things, and it's fantastic. I kid you not. It's just fantastic. I'll leave it alone there. I've got nothing else to say. It's so good. We go to Heidelberg Golf Club in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne for the last one that I'll mention in this part of Walking the Fairways for Victoria. And they've been doing some tree work on course. Now, this work has been done on their 9th and 10th holes, along with some work to the vegetation and trees on 16, 17 and 18 as you're closing. Now, they've been managing some of the non-native species around the golf course there in these particular areas, and it's made some significant changes to the golf course. It feels a lot better. It's opened up a lot of areas. It's going to allow the turf to grow better. It's great improvements at Heidelberg. We don't hear a lot about Heidelberg. I don't know it myself, but having heard about this particular work that they're doing on course, I thought it was worthy of a mention and something that to keep everyone who regularly visits down into Melbourne for golf, to keep you informed about what's going on there in Melbourne. Now we move to the Northern Territory. Now I don't have a lot of news coming out about the Northern Territory. They don't have a lot of golf courses. I'm trying to get more of a voice from up there in the NT. And this is some news that I got about Jabiru Golf Club, which is about 250 kilometres east of Darwin. It's in the middle of the Kakadu National Park. Jabiru is more or less the tourist centre for Kakadu. And was actually a former uranium mining town. That's one of the other reasons it began out there into the east of Darwin. Just announced last week by Golf Australia is that part of the township's transition since the closure of the uranium mine is that the Jabiru Golf Club is to receive a grant to install a fully automated irrigation system for the golf course, which will include upgraded irrigation itself to the greens approaches, and tees. So a fantastic thing happening at Jabiru. It's a 9-hole golf course up there in the NT. And these sorts of things are unbelievably helpful and will go a long way to improving the golf experience and maintaining the golf courses in the Northern Territory. In particular, this one is about Jabiru. So it's maintained by a volunteer group of people. They've got a fantastic membership at Jabiru, a passionate membership, and they do a great job looking after the golf course in the way that they can. Challenging part of the world up there in the top end, unique climate, unique environment, as you've heard me talk to Superintendent Jimmy Downs from Humpty Doo, which isn't too far away. I say it isn't too far away in the scheme of things up there in Northern Territory. But that's a bit of news coming out of Jabiru, and I hope to give you some more news that I can dig up about what's happening up there in the golf courses in the Northern Territory, ladies and gentlemen. So stay tuned. I'll find out more info, and as it comes to hand, I will keep you informed as always. Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to have back on the podcast on the Walking the Fairway segment for an update from none other than Nigel Taylor, who's embarking on, he's part of what he's called the Dirty Dozen, 12 Everesting climbs by bicycle to climb the elevation of Mount Everest, all in raising awareness for mental health in sports turf and greenkeeping, just in general. G'day, Nigel. How you doing, mate?
Good, Steve. How are you?
Very well, thank you, mate. Now, mate, I really wanted to get you back on here. We talked before your last outing, before you did number 4, and then we sort of thought, look, we'll wait until afterwards because it made sense because the episode was going to come out right when you were going to do it. So, mate, we're here afterwards. You've done another Everesting climb. Is that number 4 that's completed? Is that right?
That's number 4, yeah. And it probably worked out better because it's number 4 has become bit of a story, actually. I mean, you know, you see the clip that I put on afterwards. It was pretty intense, that one. It took 25 hours.
Wow.
Not continuous, right? But, you know, it was a 25-hour time period from the time I started to the time I finished for various reasons. So it was that's been a bit epic, actually. It's kind of I'm not gonna say changed me, but it's definitely not damaged me either.
It pushed your limits. You worked out some new limits, I guess.
I did. I managed to get myself in a bit of a hole, which, you know, is part of the whole mental health kind of deal, really. After about 2,000 metres, I started to overthink a couple of things that are, you know, in my life that I just can't get a grip on, and that just pushed me really hard into a hole. And, you know, I've said before, this thing is, you know, it's physical, but it's mental more than physical. I can promise you that, because it's very easy to just say stop.
Yeah.
When your body can keep going, you know, and anyway, I sort of fought that for about 2 hours and got over it and and got into it. But the Garmin's failed again.
Oh,
and
no.
So
mate, you might have to talk to Garmin direct and say, hey guys, what's doing here? I'm doing something special.
I really don't understand what's happening there, but luckily that's happened before because I'm able to manage that now.
Okay.
And I didn't really worry about it. I knew how many laps I needed to roughly do. But in the end, I did about 7 laps more than I really needed to do. So it's probably an hour and a half longer than I really needed to be going.
But
anyway,
you made sure you completed it, right? You persevered, correct, the endurance in that to get through with the hiccups along the way, which I can't. I have one hiccup in something like that. That'd be a struggle to get past. But to go through it and know that you've still got to keep climbing and keep climbing and keep going and pushing yourself through those challenges along the way. I think everything from the outside looking in, every Everesting climb that you're doing is a mini challenge in itself. It's a challenge on its own. We've talked about it before.
Yeah,
that's the epicness of this whole thing, right?
Well, no, it is, and you know, I think you asked me or someone else asked me. Certainly, people have said to me very early on, after the first or second one, you know, do you realise what kind of, you know, the task you've taken on this year? And I did realise it. But this one has definitely had an effect on me, and I realised how, each one is very, you know, they're very difficult, and it is really, really mental. It's just so easy to say, which is, you know, it's the same as everything in life. And I think I've said this once before to some people, you know, you can have, you know, we wake up on Monday morning to do our routine for the week. And we know by the time we get to Thursday, your mindset starts to change because you know that it's Friday, right?
Yep.
It's you know, even if you've got a short shift on a Saturday, which is quite common in golf courses, you know that it's mow and go. And it's just, you're tuned to, it's not physical, it's completely mental. And something that did dawn on me this Everest is that time plays a big factor in your mental capacity and your ability to control your mental being, because time is something we can't control. You can't get it back, and you can't make it go faster. And so
you can't get more of it.
You're doing something, then you can't get more of it. That's right. Yeah, and you can't get less of it.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
So you can't make it less. Right. So it's 25 hours is 25 hours. Right. I can't make it any less or more, or go back or go forward. And so that game is going on inside your head, and you got to try and control a little bit. And like I say, I had a little bit of a a down spell for about 2 hours where I really I wasn't going to give up, but I was really it affected my concentration, and I lost the plot a bit, and it was pretty it kind of wasn't good.
It's it's probably a fair, I suppose, reflection or a comparison to what people go through with mental health challenges. You get right down in a hole, right? You're physically going through this is to raise awareness, to get the conversation going. People think about their own situations and go and seek help if they feel that. And that's part of us talking about it here and now on the podcast, and we have those conversations. I've had plenty of people reach out to me about what you're doing, and we want more people to talk about it amongst themselves and amongst the industry. It's a reflection on and a comparison to those daily grinds that people have that take away what you're doing. People are doing this every day in silence as well, aren't they?
Correct. That's right. Correct. And it's I do it solo and self-supported for that reason, because you need to understand the whole mental health challenges. You've got to put yourself there, even though I'm there anyway. But you got to put yourself there, and it was an interesting the circuit I had. That particular hill was an interesting one. There was actually a lot of traffic that night. Strangely enough, a lot of people coming and going all sorts of hours in the morning, and that kind of affects you a bit as well. If you're not watching the time, like, what time is it? Why are these people? What are these people doing? So it's it definitely. I've definitely come away from that one a little bit. I won't say change, because change is too big a word, but definitely had an impact on me for sure. Not in a negative way, and maybe a little bit of a positive way, but I just look at it a little bit differently. Typically, I don't deep thought in when I'm doing the Everest, because there's a lot to think about, the turns and your effort and the food and hydration and how many meters I've got left and how many I've done and everything. But this one for whatever reason turned into quite the challenge, and as you say, it just exemplifies what happens with people having mental health every day.
I have to ask the question, because I've never embarked on anything, even a single version of one of the 12 that you're doing to that level, but and not an athlete or anyone that pretends to be either. But do you get into in a journey like that, and take this 25-hour last one that you did? Do you get into a journey where you kind of, it's surreal sometimes, that you lose sense of where you are and when you are, and you just do you lose sense of space and time and just you zone out sometimes? Because that's a long time. That's a mental fatigue at, I'm sure, 4 or 5 hours, let alone 20 when you're getting through it. Are they some of the things that you go through in these specific individual challenges?
It does happen, and it does definitely happens to me, because it certainly, like I say, every lap is a lot of concentration. So you're knowing the laps, but there are periods of time that just go very, very quickly, and then there are periods that go really slow, and it's not always the same. Some of it is the same, some of it is not, and I can't work out how that works, because it's actually, if I started at 3:00 in the afternoon, this one, actually to get to midnight seemed like it went really quick.
Okay.
And then there's this kind of 3 or 4 hour period that's real slug. And that wasn't when I was in a hole. That's just a regular. I know it's coming. It's a normal slug, and I recognize that, particularly in the last 2 or 3 hours, where they start to go slow, because it's the last, it's the last dig, right? It's the last dig, and then, the last lap is kind of also really strange, because you sort of go, oh, finally got there. Actually, it wasn't. I got there. It wasn't that bad. I don't know what all the fuss was about for the last. Funny. Obviously, that's part of the thinking. The psychology of it is strange. I explained to my dad a couple of times. He's quite a thinker, and he's quite a researcher, but he can't understand it. In fact, he said to me the other night, he said, "Oh, what happened?" He said, "Oh, is the whole thing starting to fatigue you?" I said, "No, not at all. I just had I got into a bad cycle of thinking about the wrong things, overthinking things, which is a symptom of kind of mental health illness, and I just dug myself in a big hole. There's no one there to talk to about it except myself and Pluck a D hanging off the handlebars, and that's it. You've got to kind of deal with it, as well as think about staying on the bike, staying upright, watching the cars, the dogs, the other humans. It's getting dark, it's cold, it's raining, hungry, thirsty. All those other things. So, like I say, it's physically I don't worry about it anymore. I know I can do it. I've done 6. If you count the 2 halves, I've done 6, right? So physically, I'm not really. It doesn't challenge me a super amount. It becomes very, very mental. Yeah.
You are a long way now into the year. We've got 4 down technically, 4 completed versions. Do you? I know you had the 12. Is it something that you are going to make up because we're in the 5th month? You've talked about that because I know you've done one makeup already and you had another one. And so if you do it, is that part of the deal? Like that's part of your thing?
100%. And to expand on kind of the whole psychology of it, Steve, and people will think I'm bullshitting when I say this, but when I get in the car and I drive home, when I get home, I already have butterflies for the next Everest. I'm already like, yep, that's okay. I've done that one, so now we're on to number 5.
That's unreal.
And that's also part of the challenge, though, because I have to try and temper my enthusiasm a little bit, because if you get overconfident, that's when things start to go a bit pear-shaped. But no, 100%, 12 is still the goal. I think I probably think about it more than I should, but 5 is on my mind quite a bit at the moment. I'm going back to a climb I did before for number 5 because it's a climb I know where it's a comfortable one. I know it'll be fine. But no, I mean, to answer your question, yeah, the enthusiasm is not dwindling. My body is not, touch wood, is not getting damaged, and no, I get quite excited at the thought of doing another one, to be honest. And you have to be, and I think as I said before, I'm not an athlete, I'm not a professional athlete. But anybody that does any endurance sports, anybody that tackles a triathlon or a marathon or anything like that, you have to be excited.
Yeah.
Otherwise you can't do it, and it's part of the process.
It's mate, hats off to you and anyone else who does any endurance. And I'll just go as far as to say anything athletic. I'm not that way inclined. Golf is my form of athleticism, which isn't exactly, and even then I struggle my own bits. But mate, I think about all that. I think about the hard. You mentioned the next climb that you're going to go back to is an easier climb. I almost laugh at the idea of you saying an easier climb to do 8,000 and something meters. I know what you mean when you say that, but it sounds funny to hear you say it like that.
Yeah, no, I know. And when I mean easier, it's a climb I've conquered. So that's a box that's ticked mentally, right, and physically, because I've done it. And you can do it again. And then the road surface is very good. There's not much traffic. There's a very nice parking spot. It ticks a huge amount of boxes, that climb, and it'll just take away some of the pressure, not having to worry about whether it's that climb's possible or not. Even though I always go prior to doing the Everest, it just takes a lot of pressure away from worrying about how it's going to end up. Yeah.
Mate, I can also pass on. I've had lots of messages and people sort of saying, they've listened to your story, they've listened to your climbing, they want to know how it's going. So it's good to be able to have you back on and let people know that it's going well. I'm hearing that bit of support through the podcast. Are you hearing that bit of support as well?
Yeah, a little bits and pieces. I'm not a social media guru, but I accidentally worked something out this week, and a bit by accident, I managed to get that video onto Reels, which seems to get a lot more attention than just a post. And I wasn't aware of that. It's how whatever the society works.
Yep.
And as you know, when you put things on, you can then see the analytics. And so when I scroll down through the people who've watched it, I realize how far the reach is. Yeah. And I don't know everybody that's watching it necessarily personally, but I can see that it's hitting people that I know that are in a little hole for whatever reason in life, through work or relationships or whatever. I feel it's having, and I do get a few messages here and there. Josh messages me from the UK.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I hear from, and a couple of other people. That help out. And So it is having, it's challenging a little bit. to get the support during the event, because during the Everest, because I go over the night, right?
Yeah.
And really, it's only people in the northern hemisphere, the far northern hemisphere, that would be awake. But so no, I'm getting I get it, and it's okay if I don't get it directly. If you're hearing about it or someone else tells me about it, that's great. The message is getting out.
I know the message is getting out, mate, and I've had conversations in person with people, and I've had messages from people and other conversations as well. So, mate, it's great, and it's an inspiring thing that you're doing, and that's what people are telling me as well. So, I'm going to put the call out as well to anyone out there in business, if you want to support what Nigel's doing, and I don't know who else is open to doing that, but I'm putting a call out there to business in our industry. If you want to support Nigel and pass around what he's doing as part of this, the Dirty Dozen 12 for 2025, and these 12 Everestings, it's quite an incredible challenge, and we want to see more support and more recognition and passing this conversation around so that we can talk about it more. Really, that's what we'd love to see. Nigel, when's the next one?
That is a good question. I've got quite a lot of things going on. I'm just trying to balance out. I'm really focused on 5 because I really want to get halfway.
Yep.
Because halfway is obviously, it breaks the back of it, right?
Yeah.
And then it should be. I'm not going to use the word easy again. It should be. This makes it a little less daunting. So definitely by the end of July, I will have made up. Sorry, by the end of June, I will have made up to 6. I will have done 6. Yeah, that's my plan.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the plan. Yeah. Yep. So when 5 is not 100% sure, 6 is kind of penciled in. So I've just got to try and squeeze 5. And 5 is kind of the makeup one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
In a way.
So it's coming. We know by the end of June that your goal is to have been the halfway mark. That's the goal.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, there's no question. Yeah.
Very impressive, mate. We can find you on your socials. I'll have them clickables in the show notes, ladies and gentlemen, to stay up to date. You can follow Nigel and what's going on through his social media channels, the Dirty Dozen on Instagram. Mate, thank you for coming on, Walking the Fairways, and giving us an update, mate. We are right behind you. There's lots of people that are following you, and whether I know that whether you hear about it or not specifically, I know that they're out there following you as well. They're the unknown people that do tune in, as we tend to do in social media, mate. So we are right behind you all the way. When you have those tough times and those tough rides during the night, mate, you can think about us watching and knowing that we're supporting you, mate, along the way. And congratulations what you achieved, and we continue to support you, mate.
No, and look, Steve, a big thanks to everybody that does support and those that reach out and those that don't. Doesn't matter if you don't reach out. Big thanks to supporting it, and a big thanks to you as well, Steve, for your continued support. It's greatly appreciated. It's really helpful, and I'm enjoying spreading the word and hopefully making a difference. Yeah,
absolutely you are, mate. Thank you, Nigel. Appreciate you jumping on the pod.
Cheers, Steve. Take it easy.
And a post-interview update, ladies and gentlemen, from Nigel, and that is just yesterday, Nigel quietly snuck out. And if you follow the Dirty Dozen account on Instagram and Facebook, which the links are in the show notes, of course, you would have seen that he completed his makeup Everest number 5 that he had difficulties with last time and wasn't able to complete it. Well, he's made that up yesterday. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, Nigel isn't taking any shortcuts here. And if for any reason he doesn't complete an Everest challenge, he will do it again and make it up. So this one, I think he did something like 75% or thereabouts last time when he ran into a few dramas, which meant he wasn't able to complete it. So he went out on Saturday and knocked it out of the park again, rode through the night and finished up yesterday. He's now completed, that's 5 down for 5 months of the year, this year of 2025, and the next one will be the halfway mark at number 6. Congratulations, a huge congratulations again to Nigel. It was only a few days ago that we actually recorded that little snippet you just heard, but he didn't tell anyone that he was going out to do the makeup number 5 just yesterday when he finished it off. So he's done that. Congratulations. Now, I'd ask you to share his inspiring story around, ladies and gentlemen, and help continue the conversation going on about mental health in our industry. And Nigel is doing what he can to keep us talking about it so that you guys and girls out there can look after yourselves when you're going through a challenging time like this, and you can seek the help you need and you can identify it and go out there and try and get some help for yourselves. It's something that I'm doing. I'm actively going out because I believe that what Nigel's doing is quite amazing, quite incredible, and incredibly inspiring. And it keeps the conversation going about mental health and mental health challenges, which we know is prevalent throughout our industry. Now, I'm shouting also out to any businesses in the golf greenkeeping industry that want to help support Nigel. You can do so by sharing his quest to complete 12 Everest climbs for the year of 2025. Get out there. Show your support, share some of his stuff around through your social media, be involved, and let him know you want to be involved, because then he will also share that you're being involved in supporting him. So I'm asking you, whoever's out there in business in the golf and greenkeeping spaces, you want to show support, you want to help get the conversation going, share Nigel's quest around and show your support in doing so, and he'll also share that you're supporting him. That's my call out to you out there in the business world. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Walking the Fairways. A big thank you to Superintendent Ben Stacey from Tasmania Golf Club for an update to the audience on just what they've been doing down there in Hobart. It's great to hear they've been busy improving the course, along with the fact that 7 Mile is opening up later this year. And also thanks to Nigel Taylor for an update on his Dirty Dozen quest for completing 12 Everest climbs in the year of 2025, all in the name of mental health awareness. Now, ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to reach out to me on social media or simply send me an email to thegolfinggreenkeeper@gmail.com if you or your club want to share what you're up to and how you're improving your golf course, no matter where you are in Australia. Small club or big, it doesn't matter. I'm here to share how you're improving and what you're doing to make your course better for all the golfers out there that enjoy playing golf. So get in touch with me. You've heard there the way that I go about it. I'm trying to keep everyone informed of what's going on and who's doing the updating of their golf courses. There is plenty of stuff being done. It doesn't matter how big or small. Even if you're just rebuilding a tee or something minor, upgrading irrigation to a small level, if you're a small club and you're fixing up a bridge on course or somewhere, a club that no one's heard of that you want to get your name out into the Australian golf landscape, I can do that here on my platform. It's one of the top golf podcasts in Australia, just hit into the top 10 again, as you've seen through my social media, where we got into the top 10 of Australian golf podcasts on Apple, which is fantastic. I'm incredibly humbled to reach those heights once again. And it's just fantastic that so many people are out there listening and following and supporting this podcast, the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. And I thank you greatly, ladies and gentlemen, for listening and for your support. Now, thanks also to partner Dint Golf Solutions and their footy tipping comp for both AFL and NRL. You can check out their website for all their products available at dint.com.au. Thanks, of course, to partner of the podcast, Colin Campbell Chemicals. And don't forget to check out their website for their podcast, Behind the Turf, or you can search for Behind the Turf podcast on your favourite podcast app if you're already a podcast listener. And on their website, you can check out the plant protection products available. And that website is campbellchemicals.com.au. Ladies and gentlemen, you hit them clean, we'll keep them green. And I'll catch up with you very soon.